straight into the roof of the net. Nice one. Straight down the middle. So a good performance from both teams here today.
Hi, I'm Rupha Ramani and you're watching Firstpost. The weekend seems quite a whirl. The Cricket World Cup has drawn to a close. Australia have scripted a victory that they will not forget in years to come, in front of a crowd that was a sea of blue and against tournament favourites. Sport always brings out the raw emotions of joy, anguish, awe, ecstasy, and it was all of that and more at the Narendra Modi Stadium on Sunday. There's a lot lined up on the show for you today, including a look back at what India went wrong with and how Australia won their 6th World Cup title. Also, Novak Djokovic does what the Aussies did, beat the man who defeated him in the round-robin stage. How did he manage to do that? We'll tell you that and more. But first, the headlines in Sports 360. Portugal finished their Euro 2024 qualifying campaign with 10 straight wins. Portugal beat Iceland 2-0 with the first goal coming in the 37th minute by Bruno Fernandes. Ricardo Horta sealed the win in the second half, scoring in the 66th minute of the game. Barcelona midfielder Xavi limped off the pitch with a serious knee injury during Spain's Euro 2024 qualifier against Georgia. The 19-year-old was tackled from behind, buckling the knee that had his weight on it, before leaving the pitch in tears. Over in Formula One, Red Bull's Max Verstappen wins the Las Vegas Grand Prix. Verstappen has now 18 straight wins in a record-breaking Formula One season. Meanwhile, Ferrari's Charles Leclerc overtook Red Bull's Sergio Perez on the last lap to finish second. Denmark's Nikolaj Højgaard claimed his first Rolex Series title with victory at the season-ending DP World Tour Championships in Dubai. The 22-year-old Dane produced a brilliant 8 under par 64 and recorded 9 birdies in his win. And the World Cup, the Cricket World Cup final thriller was interrupted briefly when a pitch invader with "Stop Bombing Palestine" message on his t-shirt ran onto the field right up to Virat Kohli while he was batting. Security at the stadium eventually got hold of the invader and escorted him out. I'm going to take and put aside my objective lens for a minute, and this one will be from the point of view of a lover of sport. It was heartbreaking to see a team that has been unbeaten throughout the tournament, absolutely confident and just so happy to be handed out such a loss, and at a World Cup final, and by Australia. Now, in a repeat of 2003, for someone who has seen or heard or even been part of that 2003 World Cup final loss, this would hit hard. And this one hits worse somehow. It was like someone ripping away a doll from a kid's hand. Just seeing Mohammed in tears, KL Rahul slumped on his knees on the ground, Virat Kohli covering his face, Rohit Sharma just looking distraught, and the numbness will soon set in. Everyone consoling each other, pictures of the family waiting in the shadows, their eyes so worried and filled with sorrow. You know that this only gets worse the very next day. And the families know that best. A loss like this touches everyone, the fans too. I remember the ones who left the stadium a little earlier but were still watching on their phones or seeing the scores. One of them commented with a sad smile that India probably just couldn't take the pressure. The airport this morning was teeming with blues, fans who probably just had enough time to get back to their hotels, take their stuff and get to the airport, to get back to their cities or their countries and try to put this one behind them. Now, it hits you when you think back to the final and you just realize how clinical Australia was, with their intent, their attitude, their aggression, their fielding, their hunger and desire to win. Of course, the Indian cricket team wanted to win too. There was hunger and a drought of more than a decade fueling them. Somehow, Australia were just that much more desperate. They knew exactly what to do. They were bold, they were brave, like they have been in all of their past. It's a legacy that they have created and have always tried to emulate. As the next generation always comes in, they look to the past to try and recreate that. Pat Cummins strikes you like a figure so un-Aussie-like. He smiles with that crinkle in his eye, but he is an Aussie, fierce, intense, with a will to win, and he showed that on Sunday. This is a loss that will take a while to heal. The scars will be there for years to come, especially with some possibly playing their very last ODI World Cup. It's a heavy cross to bear, and World Cup wins hurts in the most acute way. Because it is one for the history books. And no matter what you do to move on, try and shake it off, history will always remind you. For me personally, this took me back to that place I found myself in 2007, the World Cup in West Indies of Dravid, Anil Kumble, Sachin Tendulkar, all heartbroken, knocked out of the World Cup. The Indian cricket team came much closer this time, probably why the hurt is much deeper. And we are joined by former India cricketer Deep Dasgupta, who has been at the commentary box throughout the Cricket World Cup. In fact, was also last night at Ahmedabad. Thank you for speaking to us, Deep. First of all, how gutted will the Indian team be after such a loss?
I guess distraught, distressed. I mean, listen, this had to be the biggest day in their careers. I mean, by far. I know Virat's won World Cup before, so has Ashwin. I'm sure apart from those two gentlemen, I think this would had to be the biggest day. Even for someone like Rahul Dravid, this could have been the biggest day of his career, right? So you can very well imagine the extent of the heartbreak. I mean, we can if you want to individualize it and you pick your biggest day, and that falls apart, and you can kind of then maybe try and relate to what they must have gone through after last night. So I think it'll be very, very difficult to kind of explain otherwise.
But how difficult is it going to be for them to move past something like this?
It's a long tournament. It was 6 weeks, more than 6 weeks, right? And you had to maintain that level of intensity, the environment and everything else. It's not about, a 3-week, 4-week tournament. You're talking about, and something that I think Rohit mentioned, that they've been preparing for this for over a year now, in terms of picking up the right individuals, road definition and everything, so on and so forth. So I don't know. And I think it's going to be a very individual thing, and how they handle, because again, all of them are in different, different situation in their careers. I mean, someone like Rohit, this could well be his last World Cup. Maybe Virat last World Cup. Mohammed, Shami last World Cup. So they would take it differently as compared to someone, let's say, a Shubman Gill, who would go on and play a few more World Cups. So I think they would all kind of process it very, very differently, and I think that's where I think the support system got to kick in. Your family, your friends, because, like I said, this is not going to be easy.
Yeah, it will be pretty lonely right now. But just a word on Australia, Deep. The most successful side when it comes to World Cups, a word on just their system and how they're so mentally strong.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, a big congratulations to Australia, because obviously after losing those two games, the first two games, and there were doubts. I mean, let's be very honest. A lot of us doubted Australia, and were they ready for this? Are they up for it?
Yeah.
But God, I mean, like you said, big games, and they just find that extra gear. They just manage to do it. And I think a lot of it kind of turned I got to give a lot of credit to Pat Cummins, actually. I mean, the first two games, I thought the leadership or the captaincy was very average, but then the way he led the side yesterday was so good. I mean, for an Australian team to win a toss, a World Cup final toss, and to field is kind of unheard of. So that's got to be a very, very brave move, right? I mean, obviously, with not just him, as the support staff also, I'm sure, would be involved in it. But apart from that, I mean, just from ball one, the discipline and everything else, and he himself, that spell of his was phenomenal, that 6-over spell during those middle overs. And and it boils down to, I guess, pedigree. It boils down to, just the knowledge of the history or the heritage that they carry forward, of winning big games, of dominating big games and stuff like that. And I think, again, it was quite evident yesterday. It just seemed like a different team from what we've seen Australia in like most of the tournament, to be honest.
Just to sort of reflect a bit on that final, Deep, if we look at India, Rohit said after the match that he would have batted as well had he won the toss, but the pitch definitely started playing better, unlike Kolkata. Did they misread it, and did they sort of lose it all somewhere in that first innings with the bat?
I guess obviously losing those back-to-back wickets, Rohit falling in the 10th over, 11th over, Shreyas falling, and back of your mind, you're in with only 7 batters, right? You don't have enough batting depth. So you kind of also thinking back of your mind as a batter, especially in the middle order, someone like KL Rahul, Virat, and you're thinking, you've got to, get in a partnership going, even if it means time. We can, pick it up. We've got Surya last 10, 15 overs, and then the wicket of Virat. Just when you were thinking, time to change gears, and KL was starting to play a few more shots, and then against the run-off play, his wicket falls. And you kind of playing catch up. I think post the third wicket, post Shreyas's wicket, I think you could feel that India was trying to play catch up, trying to kind of, stabilize and then move on. But then the moment you thought that, okay, it seems like stable now and now we can move on, his wicket falls. So I think we were kind of never got that momentum going. So in the end, you ended up making good 30, 40 runs less than what you should have. And batting first, it was, so when I looked at the pitch yesterday and I was like, geez, this is a good toss to lose, because your cricketing mind, purely cricket, forget the magnanimity of the match and everything else, just going by the pitch, you knew it would get better. Even if there is no dew, under lights, temperature falling, the pitch will play better. So purely cricketing answer would be chase. And you have someone like Virat, and you are a good chasing side, right? But then you put in, and this is, a big question mark, and then you put in the whole World Cup final scenario, and you're like, oh, such a big game. Do you really want to chase? And hence I was like, geez, this is a difficult call. And that's the reason I think that's a really, really brave call, Pat Cummins choosing to chase.
Right, and he followed that up by just the way they were in that first innings, the way they fielded particularly, put that pressure on, and all of that, did it in some sense sort of add to the weight and sort of weigh India down in the second innings? Because even 43 for 3, you would fancy your chances, but somewhere they let the pressure off.
So I think they would have easily saved around 30, 35 runs, and I'm being conservative here, right? And this is not just the finals, the semi-finals, the South Africa game as well. They were absolutely superb. And the finals, easy 30, 35 runs. And India could have been, they could have been chasing down 270, 275, the way India batted. Forget everything else. Forget momentum, forget changing gears and all that. Just plain simple fielding saved them 30, 35. And I guess those are the things which make Australia different, those 1%ers. Come the crunch time, they kind of pull things in and do those 1%ers better than most of the other teams.
Yeah, we have to speak about someone like Travis Head too, Deep. What an amazing innings to play, the way that he did in a final 100. Just a word on how he turned out to be key contributor, especially having missed out almost half of the tournament owing to an injury, and he comes back and he does what he did.
100 on his first game of the World Cup. He comes from home. He wasn't even part of the team. He was at home recovering and whatever rehab and stuff. He comes first game, he gets 100, and then you suddenly sit up and realize, that's how important Travis Head is to this team, because he missed good 4-5 games, and you're thinking, if he's not going to play half the tournament, I'm sure there's someone else who can take his place, right? Do you really want him in the squad? But then you realize why and how important Travis Head is to this side. And it was a very different Travis Head innings. Obviously we know that he wants to go hard from ball one, which he did. And then suddenly those 2-3 wickets fell, and he played a very different kind of a knock. He was a lot more conservative. He was a lot more watchful. And then again, when he saw that was in a comfortable position, that partnership with Labuschagne, and then again, he started playing his shots. And especially against the quick bowlers. As soon as the faster bowlers came in, he started playing a shot. Well, he's done this twice to India now, the World Test Championship finals and now the 50 over finals. So, yeah, I mean, we've got to watch out for Travis Head next time we come across him.
Yes, but hindsight is a very strange thing, Deep. It always makes us wonder what if. Is there anything different India could have done in that second innings? They would have fancied their chances till quite a point.
We are splitting hairs now. I don't think really could have done anything differently. Maybe, batting first, could have played a little quicker, maybe played a few more shots. But again, we're talking about splitting hairs. I mean, second innings. The only thing I was on air while this was happening with the partnership, we could have attacked Labuschagne a little more. You don't want to attack Travis Head too much. He was a set bat, and he can take the game away from you very, very quickly. So you are a little, watchful and mindful of how Travis Head can bat. But on the other side, Labuschagne's going to only take singles. He's not going to, come in and start hitting those shots straight up. So maybe initially an extra fielder, a slip in play. So the first boundary that he hit was off the outside edge of Kuldeep, right? Nice. And there was no slip in place. So things like that, again, we have the benefit of the hindsight, but maybe if we are actually splitting hairs, maybe that's one thing that maybe could have done differently.
Yeah, that lack of an extra batter really was felt a little more. But speaking of this loss, if I just ask you to think as a cricketer yourself, an Indian cricketer, Deep, and not as a commentator or someone who's observing this objectively, why does this one hurt just a little more? Why does this hurt the most?
See, 2015-19 didn't feel bad. 2003 felt bad because I was still part of the system then and part of this extended squad or whatever. And it did feel bad. And it felt bad for a different reason because we weren't in the game. You know what I'm saying? In 2003, from over one, we weren't just there. It was like, whatever. But this game, it hurts because one is how these guys played. And India played a very different brand of cricket. And they took this conscious decision to play differently, starting with Rohit. The bowlers were phenomenal. I mean, you can just... maybe 2007 Australia dominated, 2003 Australia dominated. I can't see, and I don't remember 75, 79. I wasn't even born 75, 79, I don't remember. I don't see any other team had dominated the tournament as much as India had right. in this one. From game one till the finals, I think you couldn't have asked for a better tournament that. You couldn't have asked for better performances from your batters. The mindset, the approach, the bowlers, maybe this faster bowler or the spinners, you just checked all the boxes you can even think of. So, I mean, and that's the reason it just feels a bigger loss than it actually is.
Well, we have to speak about the coach, Rahul Dravid. Somehow he finds himself in these very, very heartbreaking moments on World Cup stage. It's a little disheartening to see him on that side as well. It's way too many times that picture is evident. But what next for someone like him, Deep?
Oh God! I mean, he was obviously there 2003 and now 2023. So and you've got to give a lot of credit to Rahul, even though he's one of those guys who always stays in the background and doesn't come forward that much. But being covering the World Cup and traveling and being at the ground for the India games and stuff like that, you could see the kind of effort that the whole support staff put in as well. And Rahul and Dilip and Paras and everyone. I mean, the physios, the massage therapist, everyone. And for someone like Rahul, it's going to be heartbreaking. I don't know whether he's questioning his destiny, whether it's meant to be, you know what I'm saying, as a player in 2003 and now as a coach, coming so close. So yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. I mean, I maybe he's going to take a break. I think he's going to take a break, and maybe reassess, and maybe he still has maybe he'll have another go as a coach, winning the World Cup.
Yes, we'll wait and see how that pans out for Rahul Dravid and the entire team. It's something that you'll want to move ahead and work towards the future. Look towards the future. There's another World Cup albeit in another format coming next year. But that's all there is now. Thank you so much for joining us for this one, Deep Dasgupta.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Now, the curtains of the ICC 2023 World Cup closed just last night, with the Aussies basking in the glory of a triumph that silenced an entire nation. Just like how the six-time champions now turned the tables when it really mattered. World number one, Novak Djokovic's victory at the ATP Finals in Italy, his record seventh time, executed a similar sort of turnaround. He found himself fighting against the same opponent who he had lost to in the round-robin stage. But he refused to be contained. That loss didn't break him. Instead, it flipped a switch. A common thread between the Aussies and Djokovic is quite obviously their resilience, their mental tenacity. The only distinction, however, is when Australia bounced back after a bumpy start at the ICC World Cup, it was a collective effort of 11 men and the support staff picking each other up. But Djokovic is a one-man army. Yes, he has a support staff, but he was well aware that he will be playing in front of a boisterous crowd alone that won't cheer for him, that will be backing his opponent. But against the backdrop of the deafening noises, it was his skill that created the most impact to silence the crowd.
It was celebration time for captain Serbia yet again. Novak Djokovic has seized the ATP Finals crown for the seventh time. And with that win, Djokovic also broke Roger Federer's record of 6 season-ending titles. The world number one defeated Jannik Sinner at the Nitto ATP Finals and secured a straight-set victory of 6-1, 6-3 against the Italian. But this victory, in its true essence, tells a story, where the heroes rise from the ashes. The tournament started off with Novak losing to Sinner in the group stage. And 5 days after that defeat, the two faced a rematch in the final, where Djokovic avenged his loss against the 22-year-old. When it came to the most important match of the tournament, he was present, the intent was acute, and he knew exactly what to do. Champions are known for their response during adversity, and that's what separates Novak from the very best in this sport. He did exactly that when he knew his final was against the same competitor who also happens to be a home favourite.
He's going to have crowd on his side. I know what to expect, and I think having already a match against him and this kind of atmosphere helps me prepare better. And the performance of tonight really gives me good feelings ahead of tomorrow's final because I've played my best match of the tournament so far. I think it also serves as a great preparation tool, I guess, analyzing that match that we played a few nights ago and understanding what needs to be done better in order to win from my side. He has been the best player of the tournament so far, won 4 out of 4 matches and played some great tennis, obviously riding on the big wave of support of his Italian crowd here.
Djokovic's coach, Goran Ivanisevic, in fact said that after losing to Sinner, he shut himself off from his team for a while and stayed by himself. Perhaps that was the awakening the inner monster within him needed.
I knew as soon as he got into the semi-final, he's going to win the tournament. The mentality changed. The new Novak Djokovic arrived on the court from Saturday. When real Novak Djokovic arrives on the court, then in that moment there is nobody that can play with him. You could see in his eyes. It's very tough to beat Novak twice in 1 week in the same tournament.
Goran, who has now been with him for over a year and a half, recognizes his moods and his psyche more than ever. And he couldn't be more wrong. Djokovic was triggered by the loss at the round-robin stage and then transformed that fire in him to subdue Sinner in the final. True to that, Novak changed his game plan and refused to be defined by those early blows. The round-robin stage between Djokovic and Sinner lasted for over 3 hours, where his opponent lured Novak to make errors. Djokovic played more backhand strokes during the group match. But come the final, he executed a different plan, converting most of the strokes to his forehand. But that doesn't come as a surprise. He's done it in the past and against the very best. Novak lost to Roger Federer in straight sets in 2015, but went on to win the title beating Federer in straight sets. That's the monster that he is, clearly showing the mentality of a champion who cannot take a loss without turning it around. This would have been the biggest career title for Sinner, and hearing the crowd echo your name adds to the fire. The louder the cheer, the stronger is the confidence for athletes. Djokovic ensured for Sinner that moment is short-lived. He wrapped up the game in just 1 hour and 45 minutes. The sweet revenge might have ended against Sinner, but Djokovic is far from stopping and refuses to be contained.
Rune, Alcaraz, and him are, the big three, next big three, if you want to call them, and they're going to carry the sport. I will hang on for as long as I feel like hanging on, as long as I'm still I think as long as I'm able to win against them on the big stage, I'll still keep going because, why stop if you're still, winning the biggest titles? But once they start to, kick my butt, then I will consider probably having a little break or maybe a permanent break from professional tennis. But
he now sits on top of the ATP rankings as the world #1 for the 400th week. For the rising stars, Djokovic isn't simply an opponent, but a force of a different species altogether.
Let's talk football now. You must have guessed what we are heading towards. The Blue Tigers, or the Indian national football team, are bracing for the second round of the 2026 FIFA World Cup Qualifiers. They kicked off their campaign against Kuwait and won the match 1-0. Quite an upset that was. The venue for India's next encounter against Qatar is going to be the iconic Kalinga Stadium in the Indian state of Odisha. Sunil Chetri's team is looking confident. Meanwhile, Qatar, who are the 2019 Asia Cup winners, are coming off after thrashing Afghanistan 8-1. We'll be there at the venue to bring you ground reports to build up to that clash. Tune in to Firstpost to catch all of that and more tomorrow at 7 p.m. Now that brings us to the end of our show. But before we say goodbye, here's a glimpse, or the parting shot as we call it. We're calling this the last serve. Teams paying tribute to a fallen comrade is deeply emotional experience because over the years they grow into families and form special bonds that are much more than just team members. Nottingham Panthers, an English ice hockey team, honoured their late forward Adam Johnson.
The noise in here is deafening.
Obviously, in an occasion like this, it's what should be done. It's great.
Absolutely, and I think in centre ice, and they've all stayed in here. This fabulous Motorpoint Arena crowd this evening. They've all stayed in the building and chanting Adam.
That's a different form of anguish that today, but thank you so much for staying with us here on Firstpost for another edition. Hope you enjoyed it as much as we did bringing it to you. And tomorrow, I'll of course see you from Bhubaneswar in India's Odisha to get you the latest on ground from India's FIFA World Cup qualifier campaign against Qatar. For now though, bye-bye. Take care.